You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
Okay, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners a little bit, something about yourself and maybe where you're calling in from.
Yeah, I am calling from Durham, North Carolina. But a fun fact, was actually born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is where the office takes place. It is a real place. Contrary to what people think, it is not mythical like Pawnee or some of the other towns that sitcoms make up.
So yeah, it's funny. Now that people say Scranton, you realize that's the first thing that comes to people's mind.
Exactly.
That's hilarious. Well, I'm glad you popped it in there because it was already in people's minds anyway, so thanks. So you're in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Tell me a little bit about RyanVet.com. RyanVet is your name. Tell me a little about what you do and kind of what value your services bring to the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say I am the quintessential entrepreneur from the lemonade stand on the streets of Chicago where I grew up to really getting involved in the beverage industry and software and doing a lot of different things. So over the years, kind of more from an entrepreneur to an investor in various projects, and that's where I am today.
So are you kind of in the world of many like a lot of project management now?
No, not really. A lot more advising would probably be kind of the right word for that.
Okay. So how did you get into what you do exactly?
Yeah, it really did. Like I said, it started with the lemonade stand, and I really quickly realized that I could diversify my product offering and add slushies, and ultimately added a line of trading cards. And at one point in time, I decided to call the Chicago Tribune, which was the big newspaper in Chicago, and I tried to take out a full back page ad to sell my trading cards. Now, at the time, I was about probably 9, 10 years old, and they answered the phone and they said, "Yes, ma'am," which was just devastating to me. And they told me it was about $20,000 a day for a full color back page ad, which wasn't exactly in my budget at that point in time as a 9 or 10-year-old. And so like any entrepreneur, instead of taking no for an answer, is trying to really uncover and figure out exactly really how can I make the most of a situation where I got no for an answer. And so I did what any entrepreneur would have done, started my own newspaper. It went maybe about to 3 houses and lasted about 2 issues. But all of that led up to a local business actually seeing that I had a little bit of an ability to do some graphic design. So that's really where it started from, was a passion for marketing and graphic design. And from there, I grew a multinational marketing firm. We had clients in over 25 countries. And that was by the age of about 15 or 16. And through that, we were one of the first companies to do really small business websites, something that wasn't going to charge you an arm and a leg. It was when the internet was really just starting to take off, and when people were for the first time really seeing the need for a corporate website. And so that's where I got into a little bit of development. I don't write a line of code myself. That'd be really dangerous. But that's where, from there and working with developers, I learned about software. That's really where I got my springboard into sort of where I am today.
Awesome. So what are you focused on right now personally in business? Is it the speaking engagements? Is it the projects that you're talking about?
I mean, those things always come up. When you're investing or advising companies, there's always opportunities to attend board meetings, provide consulting from that standpoint, as well as speaking comes along with that naturally. But what I would call my day job is a company called Boon. It's B-O-O-N. It is a software company. Imagine Uber meets eHarmony meets healthcare staffing. Healthcare staffing is about 16 times larger than Uber and Lyft combined. And so it's a massive $360+ billion market annually just in the US. And so I saw this opportunity and really wanted to figure out how to solve the problem with software to really speed up a number of things. The eHarmony component comes in because right now someone just goes and is matched to a practice without any sort of understanding of their skills or what software they know. There's a whole list of things that are important. If you go and you have a nurse working on you or a dentist working on you, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing in that particular office. Not that they're incompetent or incapable, but that office might have a different skill set or different tools or different software. Right. And so you want to make sure they're fully equipped and no one was doing that. So we put all that together and also high-level personality matching and are now matching providers on demand.
That's a really good point. I always say that sometimes, and I think I've heard it somewhere. It might have been Seinfeld because I watch a lot of it. But like I think it was someone's graduating the bottom of these classes somewhere at the MD schools. Like, how do we find out who these people are? And how do I make sure, not to avoid them, but to make sure where I'm going for something specific, at least something that's important, that I'm going to at least the best top-notch doctors in those fields, right?
Absolutely.
Give me a little time about, you've had many companies, awesome success early, by the way. Congratulations on that. Give me a time where you felt you hit rock bottom and you were like close to at least rock bottom, not able to overcome those objections.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs are always either on the mountaintop or in the middle of the valley. Very much like a salesperson. They're either getting yes or no. There's usually nothing really in the middle there. And so that's really one of the things that I've learned over the years. And I would say probably one of the most exciting times also turned out to be one of the most difficult times. And that was really when one of the first, what I would call real startup, it was the dorm room startup, it was software. The first real startup I did, we started getting a lot of momentum. We were getting customers. We were turning a profit. We had bootstrapped the whole thing and we're making money. Every entrepreneur's dream. And we had several companies come and approach us that wanted to buy us. And that's the second part of the dream. So either you're making money or hopefully selling and exiting and making money that way. And we were about to do both. So we went through over 6 to 8 months of due diligence with this really large company. It was the perfect fit. They were so excited. We were so excited. We went to what we thought was the signing table, and there's a different lineup of people on the other side of the table. And we said, oh, you must be the lawyers and the accountants, and one of you must have the notary stamp. And come to find out, they had aligned their whole executive team. They had received about $100 million investment themselves. And so the people we've been talking with for over half a year were no longer around that table, and they were not interested. And so what I learned there, that was rough, but I think what I learned was what happened afterwards. And that was the fact that we had built the company to sell it and not for the customers. And the customers had already been paying us and we were already profiting off the customers. But when we were really in this acquisition process and this due diligence phase, instead of focusing on keeping our customers' satisfaction very high, we focused on selling the company. And so by just a couple months after that deal didn't happen the way we had hoped, we started losing a lot of customers because we hadn't been there for them. And I think that's really at the core of one of the biggest rock bottoms was not necessarily the letdown of the acquisition, which was painful, but it was really the fact that we had a good company and we almost exited it. We didn't at that point in time, and we came out making the good company fall apart. It's like the book Jim Collins, How the Mighty Fall. Yeah, and you're at the peak of your game, and then all of a sudden you start to you get cocky and you lose focus on what's most important. The example in there that I love is Rubbermaid. They didn't feel like they were having enough innovations, so they required each team to produce one new product every single day. So at the end of the year, they have over 365 new products per team. Well, they spread themselves too thin, lost what their core value was, and obviously that capitulated them down into an area of less success than they had. So we experienced the same thing.
I think more and more businesses are starting to understand that, and that's a really good point, Ryan. If you're listening and if you have a business model based around how to make things easier and more profitable, flip that thing upside down and find out. Remember who the heck is paying you, right? Who's your service going to? Who is your customer? And ask them. There's an idea. Yep. Ask them what they want. Ask them what's going to make it better. How can their experience be better if you're a service? And then build those processes and procedures and marketing campaigns around that. Not around what you think, but around what your client thinks. And I've had those issues in the past too with technology in my group travel business on assuming that it was going to work because it was what I thought would work. Right. Not even close. Total bomb. Right. And it's like 40 grand later and, maybe like a development run later, which is not bad for development the first run, but it was it was like, what just happened? Of course, I'm outsourcing stuff. I'm bootstrapping. I have zero investors at the time, but Life Nation, we're all striving towards different goals. Maybe your goal is to finally quit the 8 to 5 time, quit your job, or take the next step with your existing business. Whatever the goal may be, regardless of your reasons, if you are serious about taking the next step and finally trying to build the life that you deserve, the life that you want to live, take the leap of faith with me. Go to michaellevis.com and let's discuss your goals and life. It's 100% free. There's no obligation. It's MIKEOLIVAS.com. Schedule a quick call. I'd love to help. I realized that it was a great expensive learning experiences, but if we can save you some of that money, Business and Life keeps listening. It's like, make sure that you flip that model upside down and reverse engineer what your client wants and how to make things better for them. And eventually, once you do that, you will definitely start killing it and scaling a lot more. I agree with that.
Yeah. I use the example of the cereal box. You've got, I don't know if when you were a kid, you got the cereal box with the Hot Wheels car or whatever.
Yeah.
The best way to get that out is not eat all the cereal, flip the box upside down. And so sometimes it's what you have to do in business too.
Yeah, I love that. It's a good analogy. I might take that one from you. But what do you think? Why do you think many entrepreneurs out there? You've spoken to a lot of them. You've discussed business with a lot of them and strategy. Why do you think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that actually end up just giving up?
I think there's a lot of reasons. A lot of people get into something because they're passionate about it, which is good. Passion does fuel your drive towards success. However, passion also dwindles at times, especially when things get hard. And so passion is a key element for an entrepreneur, but also grit. And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot. We talk about hard work and all of that, but grit, that means through the good and the bad. Sometimes it's easy to coast when things are good, and then you get lazy when things are bad. And so I think the constant discipline is something that a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs or small business owners, get caught in the weeds in. And there's so many things that cloud us every single day in everyday business that it's hard to see past that. But, you go into this tunnel where you have to get all these things done. You can't see the light at the end of it. You have to remember you're in the tunnel still, otherwise you're not going to get out of it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs that don't succeed often get clouded with the minutia, because a lot of entrepreneurs are visionary, and a lot of people have these grandiose ideas, which are good. That's why the world moves forward. That's where innovation is born. That's where a lot of these big successes that we see come from. But they forget about taxes and accounting and managing people, which is terribly difficult. It's not always great relationships, partnerships, and just the business things that you have to do every day. Customer service. That's another one that gets people a lot of times, is they thought everyone's going to love their product just like you love the product. That's not always the case. So these things so often cloud our day-to-day that we don't step up above that noise and look at the goal that we want set for ourselves. And I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs have to get stuck and they can't get out of it.
Yeah, you get stuck in something that's a process and a procedure, or you're afraid of maybe handing it off because you don't think you're the only person that can probably do it, right? Or you assume that, yeah. And I think that's okay. If you're out there listening and you're thinking like, well, I am the only person right now doing it, you might be, but if you're not bringing someone in at least entry level and baby stepping them into a way where you can start working on the business versus in it, you're going to cap out on growth. You just will.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, no one can really do anything alone, and building a team is important. That's something I did not do at the beginning. When I had my multinational marketing firm, it took someone 18 months before someone approached me and said, "Hey, can I have a job?" And I couldn't handle the workload. And that was the first time I'd actually started to build a team. And that second person turned to 13 people within about a year. And so really that is important to rely on people. And you mentioned just a moment ago as well, someone can't do it as well as I can. And that's true, but they're going to do it differently from a different perspective. And sometimes that diverse perspective is actually better than you doing it your way 100% of the time. And I often tell people when I'm doing any sort of leadership or management coaching, if they can do at least 80% of what you would have done, then that's gold, because that other 20% could be a perspective that you actually don't have. And so a lot of times that's hard for managers, usually not so much entrepreneurs, but managers and leaders, to step back and be okay with handing off the baton, realizing that, it's going to get dropped in a way that you wouldn't have dropped it, but hopefully that person will be able to run some of the distance for you, so you're not having to pull all the weight yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if it's 50%, if it's 80% of the output that you could be doing, you're thinking like, well, I'm not going to make as much money this year. Think about the compound effect of that SOP that you're going to create based on that person that's just done 50 to 80% just output of what you generally would have done. Well, sure, it's not as much, but think about once you break that down and you can multiply that, you can cookie cutter that thing, and you can franchise the process. Your obviously your multiples are endless when you start scaling that way. What are you excited about right now, Ryan, in your business?
I think growth. This is a complex business, more complex than I thought. And out of starting many businesses, you think I would learn that they're all more complex than you think. But this one, the software play was really easy. Actually, it was the fifth software platform that I've led the development on, and so it's that part wasn't actually that difficult. What's become difficult is, again, we talked about it a couple minutes ago, the customer piece and how radically different their perspective on our product was. And so that's where we are now. We're experiencing rapid growth, which has just been really exciting. And we've kind of hit our stride in the last 60 days, and we're seeing a really clear growth curve. But that is also coming about 6 months later than we had anticipated, just because we misjudged the customer, just the customer's actual needs. We hit the problem on the head, but they didn't need an exact solution to their problem. They needed some of the what I would call soft solutions, the feel good, the personal touch, things like that our software was removing from their existing processes. So that was a big learning. Yeah, that was a big learning.
Awesome. So tell people where they can find you really quick.
Yeah, super easy to find me. You can Google Ryan Vett, check out my website, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Easy there. My website is ryanvett.com. You can also find out more about Boon at doingboon.com. It's super exciting what we're doing, and we're entering various markets very quickly. So tons of opportunities for jobs, careers, whether you're doing it part-time as kind of a gig economy thing, or whether you're looking for a career with our company. So definitely check that out as well.
With all these companies and all these, I think, facets of different avenues of revenues going in, which is awesome. I mean, how have you been able to build the life that you want to live, right?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, for me, it's all about inspiring others towards a positive change. It was a conference I went to when I was 18. I was in high school down in Atlanta, and they were like, "What is your overall goal? If you take away your business, if you take away whatever it is you're into, what is your goal?" And it's really helping people be better, having worked with me or having met me than before. Now that doesn't always work out well, unfortunately, and that's the reality. And that's been something hard to deal with, but it's what can you do in business to do right by people most of the time. And sometimes when those unfortunate circumstances do come up and there has to be some sort of separation, how can you
Sure.
Try to leave that in the best light possible? And it doesn't always work out well, and there's plenty of things that are difficult in business and difficult decisions, but at the end of the day, are the majority of people better because they've touched your business, your product, your service, worked with you, whatever it might be.
Thanks for that, or sharing that. And in terms of what kind of, all the experiences you've had, is there one piece of parting advice that you'd give to the business and life listeners today?
Yeah, I think when you're trying to, a lot of people pick one or the other, business or life.
That's right.
And so
what do you
pick?
Think?
Neither, both.
There you go. Yeah, it's going to have to be both at some point, right?
Yeah. And I think the reality is you can't do one or the other, otherwise you'll be miserable. And so the best advice that I would have is there's always three people that I try to have around me, not three actual people, but three types of people. The first are people that I call forerunners. These are people who run ahead. More common word is mentor, but for the analogy, I'm using runners. And then someone else is the running mate, someone that's in the same stage of life as you, same place that you can just do life with. And then the third person is that training runner, the person that's a couple steps behind you that you can teach. Because I often find the times that you have the opportunity to teach, coach, mentor, or just have a coffee with someone that's a few steps behind you, you often learn more from them than you've learned in some of the experiences. And sometimes it's simply taking what you've learned and distilling that into a lesson and articulating it for the first time, or attempting to articulate it for the first time. So those are the three types of people that I think, if you're trying to have a good, healthy business and life, I think that's exactly what you have to do and have to keep around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have those really good, great, impactful relationships, and you'll be surprised that you don't have to have many of those, right? You can have 5, 10, 20, or 5, right? And
or 3.
That's it. Or just 5. And I think that's understandable. That's where your true fulfillment sometimes comes in, and you're learning from them, you're growing with them, you're hopefully celebrating their wins and they're celebrating yours. I absolutely agree. Well, Ryan, I think it's awesome that you've had some sweet successes early in your career. I'm really excited to see what else you're doing down the road, and hopefully have you back on in the future. Want to hear a little bit more about doingboon.com. You guys can definitely Google ryanvett.com. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Life Nation, you've got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Libas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.